Every football team needs players that they can rely on week in and week out. And CJ Stroud is that player for the Ohio State Buckeyes.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Buckeye fans? Welcome back to another episode of Locked On Buckeyes for the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jay Stevens, also the host of the Jay Stevens Podcast. It is Tuesday, November 15th in the year 2022, and this episode of Locked On Buckeyes is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. I would also like to thank you for making Locked On Buckeyes your first listen or first watch of every single day. During this episode, we will look through and discuss the running back health and the depth that is needed at that position, and we'll discuss the importance of Xavier Johnson throughout the rest of the season. But before we get to any of that, every single week, I get an email from the Big Ten Conference with the list of players that have won the weekly award as Big Ten Players of the Week. What is it? Offensive Player of the Week, Defensive Player of the Week, Special Teams Player of the Week, and then also Freshman of the Week. Those are the awards that the Big Ten hands out every single week. Well, sometimes there are co-offensive or co-defensive players of the week, depending on a particular week. But as the season progresses, I have noticed there's been one player for each category. And CJ Stroud's 5 touchdown performance over the weekend got him awarded Big Ten Offensive Player of the Week once again. Stroud is amazing. I can use so many words to describe Stroud's play on the football field every single week. But one that quickly comes to my mind is he is amazing. He's phenomenal. Pre-snap, post-snap, doesn't really matter. He is dialed in, locked in, and ready to go every single week. Stroud, over the weekend, like I said, he had another 5 touchdown performance. That was his fourth game this season of having at least 5 touchdown passes or more in a single game. He had 5 TD passes against Toledo, against Wisconsin. He had 6 against Michigan State. And then ultimately, he had 5 this past weekend against the Indiana Hoosiers. CJ Stroud is reliable. I can go through some more numbers and describe how he is, how many games he's had a passer rating of over 200, which is wild. His highest on the season is 265.9. I was against Michigan State. I've said it once. I'll say it again. There is no cap on how high your passer rating can be in college football. But one thing I know is when it gets that high, you're doing something right. And CJ Stroud is a player that the Buckeyes, when they need somebody, they can rely on him to move the ball down the field. We saw against Northwestern a week ago, inclement weather, can't pass the ball with those winds, really, really hard to run the ball. Traditional running backs weren't getting the job done consistently early in the game. Next thing you know, Ryan Day allows Stroud to do more things than Ryan Day allows him to do. Stroud runs the ball, moves the ball down the field, ultimately allows and helps Mayan Williams be in better running position and better field position, to get 2 easy or 2 rushing touchdowns in that game. One of them, I believe, was a 21-yard run to the right side of the field. Another one was, I believe, a short yardage touchdown run within 5 yards or less. CJ Stroud is somebody. You look at the Heisman race, that's great. There's going to be quarterbacks, there's going to be running backs. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about a receiver who might be in that conversation as well, going down the stretch to find a couple weeks of the season. CJ Stroud is reliable. Stroud is a guy we can all rely on. And when we think about the reliability that you have in Stroud, the importance at the QB1 position, the importance of Stroud with this Ohio State offense and how Ryan Day wants to utilize the quarterback to get the ball to the receivers in different avenues, in different ways, Stroud is the kind of guy that I want in my corner. Stroud is the kind of player that I want taking snaps from center, either under center, either in the pistol, either in the shotgun, does not matter. Stroud is a guy that I want in the country this year in college football, taking the snaps for me. Not perfect, but no quarterback in college football is perfect. It doesn't matter if he's perfect or not. He continues to get the job done. And being awarded Offensive Player of the Week once again makes me think he has a shot to win that award next week after the game against Maryland, the week after the game against the team up north. If he keeps playing like this, and I believe he is getting back to his normal ways and getting back the offense is to their high-powered ways, still not as explosive as we would like for them to be. Yeah, the yardage was there over the weekend, but it was coupled with a massive, phenomenal game on the ground where the offensive line did their job and helped the running backs get through the hole, get to the second level, and then as Mine Williams and Xavier Johnson, once they get out there, buddy, they were gone. CJ Stroud continues playing like this. We might see Ohio State accomplish the first of 3 goals on the season. I have seen your comments. Some of you are worried about the game against the team up north. Some of you are not as worried as you were about the game against the team up north. Ultimately, when you have Stroud in your corner, when you have CJ Stroud doing the things he's doing on the football field, when you have CJ Stroud being comfortable and being willing to pre-snap dissect, post-snap, direct the ball, direct the path where it needs to go, you are going to be successful, and you are going to be put in a way that's going to allow your team, the Ohio State Buckeyes, to accomplish the first of 3 goals on the year. Every year, the team has 3 goals. Beat the team up north, win the Big Ten championship, win the national championship. Last year, none of those goals were accomplished because they did not accomplish the first. The year before, they accomplished 2 of the 3. Got to the Natty, but got obliterated, demolished, mollywopped by Alabama. If you don't want that to happen this year where you get destroyed in the national championship, if you don't want that to happen this year where you don't accomplish any of the goals, rely on number 7. Rely on Stroud. He is one of the biggest pieces of the team, and he is a big reason why Ohio State is in great contention, has a great chance to accomplish and beat the team up north, which is crossing off a goal and a check mark the box next to goal number 1 of the season. It ultimately allows the Buckeyes to have a shot to make the playoff and win the Big Ten championship and win the national championship in January of 2023. Stroud is phenomenal. Stroud does amazing things. There's one area of the team that makes me stop and wonder what's going to happen next if something drastic happens to a player in this position room. What am I talking about? Stick around right here on Locked on Buckeyes. We'll discuss it next. This episode of Locked on Buckeyes is brought to you by SimpliSafe. If you've thought about securing your home with home security but have been putting it off, you'll want to listen up. Right now, Locked on Buckeyes listeners can order the number 1 rated SimpliSafe home security system for 50% off. This is their biggest offer of the year, and you don't want to miss it. Here's why I love it. In an emergency, 24/7 professional monitoring agents use Fast to Protect technology exclusively from SimpliSafe to capture critical evidence and verify the threat is real so you can get priority police response. SimpliSafe is home security with advanced sensors for every room, window, and door. 24/7 professional monitoring service costs less than $1 per day, less than half the price of ADT's traditional professionally installed system. Don't miss your chance to save big on the only security system I recommend. Get 50% off any new SimpliSafe system at simplisafe.com/lockedoncollege. This is their biggest discount of the year, so don't wait. And that's simplisafe.com/lockedoncollege. There's no safe like SimpliSafe. This episode is also brought to you by Billiards Plus. Billiards Plus has the best selection of pool tables, game tables, shuffleboard tables, and more, and the best service in Central Ohio. Billiards Plus also can set you up with a brand new top-of-the-line grill that will last for generations. We all know how hard it is with the supply chain issues this year and getting certain things shipped on time. So when it comes to ordering that one big gift for Christmas, check out Billiards Plus and get there early this year. Pick something out and get it shipped in time for Christmas. Billiards Plus carries the best pool tables from Brunswick, Alhassan, Canada, Billiards, and more. Plus, top-of-the-line grills from PK, Napoleon, Memphis, and Le Griddle. They'll be the last grill you own. Seriously, these grills stand the test of time. Visit their showroom on Dublin Center Drive in Dublin. Once again, go ahead and check out their showroom on Dublin Center Drive in Dublin. Check them out at billiards-plus.com. Once again, you're able to check them out. Check out all the good things they have for you at billiards-plus.com. Billiards Plus, family owned and operated for generations. So CJ Stroud is a big piece of the pie for the Ohio State Buckeyes, but there's something else going on that could be a huge piece of the pie for the Ohio State Buckeyes, but ultimately, injuries may have derailed things at this position group. I mentioned injuries. You probably have guessed it. It's the running back group. Now, I am going to do something here very quickly where I'm going to write some stuff down on a piece of paper, and you're going to quickly see that as I cross things off, you're going to realize, whoo-wee, this is a whole lot crazier and deeper than I expected, which is why it's very key that during the week, the players, the medical staff, the coaches do everything they can to help these players get back to health and get ready for the crucial stretch over the next couple weeks. Starting running back going into the season, I still believe to the coaches, he is RB1. It's Travion Henderson. Number 2 going into the season was Mayan Williams. Number 3 was Evan Pryor. Remember that name? I do. Most of you will as well. He went down early in the year due to a season-ending leg injury. Number 4 on the depth chart is Dallin Hayden. And then you have, behind him in any order, Caden Saunders, TC Coffey, and Chip Trainum. So, when it comes to this room specifically, Travion Henderson has missed time due to injury. Mayan Williams has missed time due to injury. Both those guys I just mentioned have been pulled from games due to injury, have been taken out, have not gone back in. Travion Henderson a lot, but also Mayan Williams, this most recent game, was in that position as well. Dallin Hayden is maybe one of the few running backs that's been there in the room the entire year that has not gone down with any injury at all this season. Caden Saunders, a backup running back, haven't seen him a lot at all, really, since earlier in the year. It was either the Arkansas State game or the Toledo game when it seemed like all the Buckeye running backs got a chance to tote the rock. Chip Trainum moved from linebacker to running back, but is still getting acclimated with the running back situation. It was a game time decision a week ago. Ultimately, was chosen as a player that would not be available during that game. You also have TC Coffey, who is out for the year. I believe it's a leg injury. I believe it's a leg injury. So Pryor and Coffey are out. Saunders, I'm crossing him off because he is not going to be thrust into the top unless it's a dire need. But it could happen now. So your top 2 guys are still Travion Henderson and Travion Henderson and Mayan Williams. Hayden is going to be the third back that's going to get a chance to play. If one of the top 2 guys are out, the Buckeyes are gaining trust with him, and he is going to be thrust into that role as a backup if Henderson or Williams cannot go. But ultimately, Chip Trainum is part of this group, and then also Xavier Johnson. I think Xavier Johnson is going to play a bigger role over the next few weeks. We'll discuss that in the very next segment. I never thought in this year, and I went through that long exercise on purpose to just kind of describe how crazy this year has been. Your top 2 guys are battling injuries most of the season. The guy who was supposed to be third string is out for the year, didn't even play a game this year. One of your backup running backs is out for the year. He was a walk-on running back. A guy who's in the back, in one of the backups now, 4th spot or lower on the depth chart, Chip Trainum, was not a running back initially in the season, moved after the bye week. It's crazy, man. But ultimately, it's still something that the Buckeyes can utilize to help players get healthy and get more reps this week. Now, With Maryland being on the docket this weekend, you may say, Jay, should Travion Henderson or Mayan Williams play? Ultimately, I think the Buckeyes should use this the same way NFL players use preseason games. Your top guys might play a series, might play a quarter doing a lot of the preseason games, but that's it. And ultimately, I think Ryan Day should tap into and talk to some of his NFL buddies and say, how do you guys help get guys ramped up for the regular season without them getting hurt in the preseason? A quarter, couple series. These guys need to get their feet wet, and ultimately taking a week off and then having them go back to playing a physical game the following week could lead to more injury because your body might not be conditioned like you want to, especially for Travion Henderson, who missed the game a week ago. But ultimately, when it comes to Travion Henderson and Mayan Williams, you need to treat this like NFL preseason. Have one guy play a quarter or have them alternate series for 4 series and then realize if the game's out of reach at that time, don't play any of them. Now, I am not the biggest fan of the NFL preseason and how there are only 3 games and the coaches really aren't playing those guys. That's not my biggest cup of tea. If this were an NFL podcast, I would quickly tell you, and explain why I think that's a bad way for your body to get ramped up for a very long, grueling physical season of football. However, it's a little bit different right now with these guys. If Travion Henderson is healthy, I believe he needs to play. I am not one of these other guys out there that cover the team where they say, no, save them for the big game. Absolutely not. You got to get these guys healthy and ready and physical. Play them. Play Henderson. Play Williams. The game should be quickly out of reach in the first quarter. I don't have any issue thinking the Buckeyes are going to get beat or lose to Maryland. After what we saw last week, yeah, it's a road game. Yeah, you got to deal with all those things. It's a middle of the afternoon game where the Buckeyes have not played well this year. Ultimately, play them. You have a guy in Down Hayden who needs reps. You have a guy in Chip Trainum who needs reps. Utilize that time to get Down Hayden and Chip Trainum some clock and some tick to tote the rock during the game because you don't know what's going to happen against a team up north. A very physical game, a lot of emotions, especially coming off of on the heels of what happened a year ago where the Wolverines won that game. You want to get these guys a little bit of hit, a little bit of run, so the body is ready for the physicality. Because about a week and a half from now, buddy, it's going to be a whole lot different than any game the Buckeyes have played all year long. How do the Buckeyes handle these injuries with the top 2 guys, knowing how crazy the depth is and the injuries are at this position? Play them a little bit, not too much. Not a fan of Ryan Day playing the starter so late in the fourth quarter. Not a fan at all. I could easily see him using him a little bit too much over this weekend, but I don't think he should. Ryan Day has a great talent and tool in Xavier Johnson. How will he use him? How should he use him over the next few weeks? We'll discuss that next right here on Locked on Buckeyes. This episode of Locked on Buckeyes is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get all the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there. From football to basketball to soccer and esports, we've got it all at BetOnline.net. And if you love sports podcasts, you can find those at BetOnline as well. We're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting fix. Head to betonline.net today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. BetOnline, where the game starts. So we have seen recently an uptick in usage of Mr. Xavier Johnson. Notre Dame game, the game against Notre Dame, we got to see him score a touchdown, and the Buckeyes really needed some points on the board. And people may have been wondering, who is Xavier Johnson? What is going on? Is this a fluke? No. You don't have a moment like that in that game on that stage against Notre Dame unless you have been doing something and working hard and proving to your position coaches. Could be 2. He could be in Tony Alford's room and Brian Hartline's room. You have to prove to them you deserve to be on the field to have a shot to be on the field in that moment. And Jigba going down was huge in that game, and it's been a big issue for the Buckeyes, but also not as big of an issue as you might think. Well, I'll say the biggest issue. I think there are times that Stroud has missed his playmaker, the guy that made a lot of plays last year, and calls Marvin Harrison Jr., making plays that not even his daddy made when his daddy was doing things like at a crazy level in the National Football League. But Xavier Johnson's work ethic, the trust he has built with the coaches, the ability that Stroud and the other players on offense can believe they can do things with him, put the ball in his hands, and he will do something great with it. It's huge. And I think as we talk about the running back depth and the health of the running backs, they should the Buckeyes need to. I'm not even going to say should. I'm going to tell you what I think needs to happen. The Buckeyes need to use Xavier Johnson a little bit more. If you don't trust Down Hayton and you don't want to use a three-back system, Travion Henderson, Mayan Williams, and put Xavier Johnson in the backfield. He could be kind of that misdirection, quick guy, a great receiving threat out of the backfield, which Stroud does not hit his running backs rarely at all. I'm like, hey, man, hit those guys. Henderson and Williams, they got hands. They can utilize them. Hayden, if he's on the field, he has two hands. He can utilize them. But I bet you we might see some of that come over the next couple of weeks with Xavier Johnson. Why? Because you'll want to do something a little bit different against the team up north. Throw a wrinkle at them that they have not seen all year, that Ryan Day says, we've been saving this for you. And I think what we've seen from Xavier Johnson of late is Ryan Day showing he has a tool in his bag that don't nobody know all the weapons and how it's going to be utilized over the next few weeks. And with that in mind, you got to think, my brain, it's been working a little overtime lately, and it's been telling me and showing me ways that Xavier Johnson can be used on the football field. And you know what also can happen? Ryan Day can utilize Xavier Johnson in unique packages. You ever thought about having three receivers on the field and Xavier Johnson and a tight end? So technically you have four receivers and a tight end, but he's disguising the backfield as a running back. Think about how wild that is. Think about the passing patterns and the creativity that it allows Brian Hartline to have. Is he passing game coordinator, and Kevin Wilson, who has been an OC in college football for, I believe, an offensive coordinator or head coach in the sport for 20 plus years, has been the orchestrator and the head man of the offensive side of things, not the head coach, but the offensive coordinator of some of the best offenses in college football over the past 20 years. With all of that in mind, there is a tool the Buckeyes need to utilize if they want to accomplish the first of 3 goals this year. Use Xavier Johnson and a bigger role in the backfield. You also know what that does? It helps your running back stay healthy. I am not going to keep going on this point. I think we all get the gist. And I think we might see, I hope, I know what I think. I hope we see Xavier Johnson in the backfield a little bit more, so that when he's on that stage, when the Buckeyes are on that big stage and the entire country is watching the game against the team up north, they're like, who is number 10? Who is he? I know about Njigba, but he's not really out there. He's not doing much. Hopefully he's healthy, but he's not out there. Or if he is, he's not being utilized like he was a year ago. I know about Harrison Jr. I heard about this Egbuka or Ebuka or Ebuka. I heard about this guy. But who is Xavier Johnson? They say he's a receiver, but he's in the backfield doing things that a running back does. Is he a secret weapon? He's not really a secret. But he's a weapon. And I can't wait to see how Ryan Day utilizes him over the next few weeks. Out of here on a Tuesday. You can follow me on Twitter at jstevens07. You can also send all of your emails to jstevens317@gmail.com. Thank you for making Locked On Buckeyes your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast. From the games that matter the most to the biggest stories in sports, go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes with local experts and insights only Locked On can provide. Locked On Sports Today, available on this app, YouTube, and wherever you get your fine podcasts.